This is an explanation of the human histogram activity for the systematic and statistical uncertainty lesson. The point of the activity is to introduce the idea of systematic and statistical uncertainties by demonstrating them using students as the individual data points. So the story goes that there are these alien scientists who have come to Earth and want to measure human heights. In particular, they're interested in the differences in heights between American football fans and soccer fans. So one alien scientist decides to measure the average height of these two groups by going to their respective games. So they go to an American football game and measures everyone coming through the gate, and then they go to a soccer game and measure everyone going through the gate. A different alien scientist decides to measure the same thing by going to the after parties after these games. Now, the difference between people at these after parties and people at these games is that football fans tend to go to beach parties, and soccer fans tend to go to fancy cocktail parties where they possibly wear top hats and high heels and various fancy apparel. Now, these alien scientists, they have no idea about human physiology. So as far as they're concerned, these shoes and top hats and feathery hats, they're all part of the human height. So as they measure height, all they're doing is they're measuring from the top of the person, including the hat, to the bottom of the person, including their shoes. So the idea is that there's going to be a systematic difference between the football fans and the soccer fans at the after parties, but not at the respective games. So to set up this activity, what you need to do is to prepare two sets of sheets of paper with these large prints of ranges of heights. These are just the recommended heights based on 4 bins, because we're doing this activity with around 30 students in one class, which means 15 for football games and 15 for soccer games. But you can adjust these numbers according to your own setup. So after you've prepared these sheets of paper, you might want to, well, depending on your actual venue, place these pieces of paper on the wall on both sides of the room. So in this case, we have the soccer fans on this side of the room, and we have the football fans on this side of the room, and we've already put down sheets of paper with these heights on them. Now it helps to also put the number of centimeters for these ranges for those students who are less familiar with the imperial system. Having set that up, we get into part 1 of the measurement, which is during the games. At this stage, you want the students to all stand up and choose for themselves whether they want to be football fans or soccer fans, at least for the purpose of this activity. You want both sides of the room to have more or less the same number of people. You want the football fans on this side, and you want the soccer fans on this side. Then what you want to tell them to do is to imagine themselves at a normal football game or a soccer game, wearing normal clothes and shoes and probably no hats, and imagine how tall they might be at the games. So once they imagine how tall they are, you want them to file in to each of these bins, or one of these bins, by lining up in front of that piece of paper that you've put on the wall. So you might see very soon, after some chaos, a distribution like this. So as an example, you might see a distribution like that. At this point, you want the students to pay attention to the difference between these two distributions. You might see, for example, that the soccer fans seem to be on average slightly shorter than the football fans here. Now, because of the small number of individuals, we might attribute this difference in height to statistical uncertainty. So you want to ask students if they think that the alien can conclude that football fans are in fact in general taller than soccer fans. And the answer should be no, because of statistical uncertainty, which comes from pure randomness. So now for part 2 of the activity, you want to have the students imagine that they are at the after party after seeing these games. So now the soccer fans are going to this fancy cocktail party. You want to have them imagine that they're wearing these fancy feathery hats and possibly very high heels. And now you want to tell the football fans to imagine that they're at a beach party where they're possibly wearing flip-flops or no shoes at all. And they're certainly not wearing top hats. Then you want to tell them to now file into their new heights, including these apparel. So perhaps you might see some people start to move downwards among the football fans, because they've taken off their shoes. And you might be able to see a dramatic difference in the soccer fans. Maybe a lot of them have moved around. And once the dust is settled, you should be able to see that the soccer fans are now much more skewed towards the taller distribution, whereas the football fans are now possibly skewed towards the shorter distribution. So this dramatic difference between soccer fans and football fans are not only attributable to normal statistical variation, but also to a systematic uncertainty due to the way the measurement was being done. And so once you ask the students if the second alien scientist doing this experiment at the after parties could now conclude that in fact the soccer fans are in general taller than the football fans, the answer again is no, because of a large amount of systematic uncertainty due to the way the heights are measured. So that's the end of the activity, and you can let the students go back to their respective seats.